Coco, how do you blend precision and aggression in your game?
I blend precision and aggression by just paying attention to all the details around me, and also...
It was a really intense match, and with me, I put a lot of pressure on me, so I'm happy that, I was just solid and consistent, and till the end I could, keep my focus.
Yeah, both matches are going to be a challenge, but let's see who wins.
Do you have a preference?
Nope.
The unseen moment that broke the internet. Why Coco Gauff knelt before a 70-year-old janitor right after defeating Iga Swiatek, and how one act of pure humility started a global movement nobody saw coming. Welcome back to Chatterbox, the only corner of the internet where we go beyond the highlight reel, past the press conferences, and deep into the raw, unscripted, soul-shaking moments that the mainstream media never gives enough time to breathe. If you are new here, buckle up, because we do not do things halfway. And today, we are diving into a story so powerful, so emotionally charged, and so completely unexpected that it has left millions of people around the world reaching for their tissues, rewatching clips on loop, and genuinely questioning whether they have been looking at success all wrong. This is the story of Coco Gauff, a 70-year-old janitor, a single act of grace, and the moment that proved once and for all that true champions are defined not by what they win, but by who they choose to see. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and do not even think about scrolling away, because what we are about to unpack today is going to stay with you for a very long time. Let us start at the very beginning, because context is everything. Coco Gauff is not just any tennis player. She is a phenomenon. She burst onto the global tennis scene as a 15-year-old qualifier at Wimbledon in 2019 and proceeded to beat her idol, five-time Wimbledon champion Venus Williams, in the first round. The tennis world collectively lost its mind. Who was this teenager? Where did she come from? And more importantly, could she handle the pressure of the spotlight that had just been thrust upon her? The answer, as it turns out, was complicated. And that is exactly what makes her story so compelling and so deeply human. Because the years that followed Coco's meteoric rise were not a fairy tale. They were a grind. A beautiful, brutal, character-building grind. She faced crushing defeats. She battled the kind of public scrutiny that would make most adults fold. She sat in press conferences at 17, 18, 19 years old, fielding questions that veterans twice her age would have struggled with. She carried the weight of representing an entire generation of young black athletes in a sport that has historically not always made room for them. She wore that weight with grace and fire in equal measure. And through all of it, through every loss and every moment of doubt, she kept pushing. She kept growing. She kept showing up. And then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The moment where everything clicked. The moment she faced down the most formidable wall in professional women's tennis. The relentless, immovable, seemingly unbeatable Iga Swiatek, and did not blink. Now, let us talk about Iga Swiatek for a moment, because you cannot fully appreciate the magnitude of what Coco accomplished without understanding who she was up against. Swiatek is not just good, she is otherworldly. She is the kind of player who makes the rest of the tour feel like they are competing in a different sport. Her movement is flawless. Her consistency is almost inhuman. Her ability to physically and mentally dismantle opponents is the stuff of nightmares for anyone who has ever stepped across the net from her. For a long stretch of her career, Swiatek won so frequently and so dominantly that it began to feel like the WTA Tour was essentially organized around the assumption that she would win everything. Coco Gauff had tried before. She had come close. She had moments of brilliance against Swiatek only to see them swallowed up by the Polish champion's relentless resilience. Every near miss added another brick to the wall of narrative. The story that maybe this was just one matchup Coco couldn't crack. That maybe Swiatek was her ceiling. But athletes of Coco's caliber do not accept ceilings. They find windows. Picture the scene as it unfolded. The arena is electric. Every seat is filled. The cameras are everywhere. Social media is already on fire with predictions and hot takes. The warm-up ends and the match begins with both players clearly locked in, clearly ready. This is not a match for the faint of heart. Every rally is a chess match played at 100 miles per hour. Every point is a war. The crowd oscillates between breathless silence and eruptions of noise that physically shake the stands. This is what tennis at its absolute highest level looks like, and everyone watching knows they are seeing something special. The match stretches out. It is long. It is physical. It is mentally exhausting just to watch. But what everyone notices, beyond the spectacular shot making and the tactical brilliance on display, is something in Coco's demeanor. She is not panicking. She is not wilting under the pressure the way she might have in years past. Instead, she is steady. She is composed. Because here is what the algorithm did not tell you. Here is what the quick viral clips left out. In the weeks and months surrounding this event, Coco Gauff had been stepping up to microphones at major tournaments and doing something utterly unusual for a top-ranked professional athlete. She had been using her press conference time, the time typically reserved for tactical analysis, injury updates, and carefully managed public relations, to talk about the people who work behind the scenes. The people whose names are not on any program or scoreboard. The janitors, the court sweepers, the locker room attendants, the security guards who work double shifts, the food service workers, the people who arrive before the gates open and leave long after the last player has gone home. At what sources confirmed to be major tournament appearances in the past year, Coco made public statements acknowledging what the cleaning and maintenance staff meant to her. She spoke specifically about the experience of walking through the player corridors during tournaments, the hallways most fans never see, the tunnels and back passages where the machinery of these massive events runs silently. She described how, every 5 steps, there would be a member of the nation. And she described how those workers, people who had every right to simply keep their heads down and do their jobs, would instead look up and offer her a word of encouragement. A quiet good luck. A smile. A nod of recognition. Small gestures that cost nothing but meant, by her own account, everything. She said, publicly, on the record, that those moments of quiet, unsolicited support from the invisible workforce of professional tennis had helped carry her through some of the hardest stretches of competition. That the pressure of being Coco Gauff, of being 21 years old and carrying the expectations of a nation, a generation, and a sport on your shoulders, could be almost unbearable. And that it was sometimes the encouragement of a janitor in a back corridor, a person with no agenda and nothing to gain, that kept her feet moving forward when everything else wanted her to stop. Let that land. Really let it land. Here is one of the most famous athletes in the world. A multi-millionaire with endorsement deals and a global fan base and access to the finest coaching, sports psychology, and support infrastructure that money can buy. And she is telling you, genuinely and without a trace of performance, that what gets her through the hard moments is the quiet kind public attention on their treatment of backstage workers, announced new initiatives around pay transparency, improved benefits, and better working conditions for their seasonal staff. Sports journalism, which had largely ignored this layer of the tennis ecosystem entirely, began publishing pieces exploring who these workers are, what their daily experience looks like, and what it means to spend your career in service of an industry that has not always seen it. And the woman at the center of it all, the 70-year-old janitor whose face was magnified on stadium screens across the world, found her life quietly, profoundly changed. She was offered front-row seats to subsequent matches. She was recognized on the street by strangers who had seen her face and wanted to shake her hand. She became, entirely without seeking it, a symbol of every person who has ever shown up faithfully, worked hard, and done so without recognition. And Coco Gauff made sure the recognition found her. Now, some people will inevitably ask the cynical question. They always do. Was it a PR move? Was it calculated? Was it time for the cameras? And to those questions, the answer is written in the details. Athletes have platforms. Coco Gauff knows she has a platform, and she has consistently, quietly, without grand announcements or self-congratulation, chosen to use that platform to point the spotlight at people and places and stories it rarely touches. That is not an accident. That is a choice she makes, again and again, in moments big and small. And that is why this story is not going away anytime soon. Because it is not really about a towel, or a viral clip, or even a single moment of connection between two women on the edge of a tennis court. It is about what kind of world we want to build, who we decide to see, who we make room for in our celebrations, who we recognize as essential, as worthy, as part of the victory. Coco Gauff beat Iga Swiatek that day. That is remarkable. That is historic. That deserves every headline it gets. But what Coco Gauff also did, in the seconds after the final point landed and before the trophy was in her hands, was remind an entire watching world that winning is just the beginning of the story. The question that matters is what you do with it, who you bring into the celebration, whose hands you reach for when you kneel down in the best moment of your life. And she reached for a 70-year-old woman with a broom and a worn-out uniform and decades of invisible, essential work behind her. And she placed the victory in her hands. And she said, "You are part of this too." That is the kind of champion that changes things. Not just scorelines, not just rankings, things. So that is the full story, Chatterbox family. The viral moment, the philosophy behind it, the real-world impact that has already begun to ripple outward into the world of professional tennis and beyond. The reminder that the people we choose to see say everything about the kind of people we are. Now I want to hear from you, and I mean that sincerely, because this community is one of the best things about this channel. Drop a comment below and tell me, who is your favorite athlete? And have they ever done something that made you see them differently as a human being? Have you ever had your own moment of being seen by someone who did not have to stop and notice you? And do you think more athletes should use their platforms the way Coco Gauff uses hers? This conversation deserves to happen, and I want to have it with you. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, if it gave you something to think about, if it reminded you to stop and say thank you to the people who keep the world running around you, please smash that like button right now. It costs you nothing, and it genuinely helps this channel reach more people with stories that matter. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to hear a story like this today, because there are people in your life who do. And if you are not already part of the Chatterbox family, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss the moments the rest of the world glosses over. We will keep digging. We will keep telling the stories that deserve to be told. And we will keep doing it together. Until next time, Chatterbox, stay curious, stay kind, and never stop looking for the moments that remind you what actually matters. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you in the next one.